Hello. Hope you're all staying safe and being kind. I'd like to shout out right away to Holly on Facebook and to my sister, whose current project requires me to perform this crucial step in hand sewing. It's ironing your thread and being kind to your future self. So, the Facebook thing is something that I come across a lot when people are complaining about hand sewing, because hand sewing is no fun at all, right? You're sewing and you're sewing and you get all these knots and it drives you crazy and you dread hand sewing because these knots are just, these potential knots are just terrifying and crippling, so you don't want to do them. Well, ironing your thread will make all of that go away. It's kind of like when you go to the hairdresser or your girlfriend comes over and they iron your hair, and then when you feel your hair, you're like, ah, I put some beautiful like silicone product in it or something, and then I ironed it, and then, ah, it's beautiful. That's the same way you're gonna feel when you're hand sewing with ironed thread. Okay, yes, now that we got that going, I get to go to showing you how to do it. The one on the Facebook one that inspired it was somebody who was asking about making buttonholes, because when you do buttonholes, you kind of have to go round and around and around and around the buttonhole a million times with like 2 threads, and it takes forever. So I had suggested that you use embroidery floss, and you cut it into 36-inch lengths, and you split it down the middle so that you wind up with 2 pieces of thread that have 3 pieces of embroidery floss in them. It's kind of tricky, and this is where you're being kind to your future self. You're finding the places where troubles could be had. Watch, look, see, are you seeing this? Are you seeing this? How it just twists up on its own. I don't know, but it does kind of twist up on its own. So now we have 2 pieces of thread. Look at it, spinning. Can you see it spin? I'm not sure, but it is spinning, and it's spinning because it's twisted and it's spinning. So you could do this with regular thread. I do this for all of my hemming threads. I moved some stuff around so I could show you guys the different types of needles that I have hanging around at any given point on different ledges in the house. I just kind of moved them all here so you could see. Here is a sock that is full of embroidery threads. This one has a bunch of blue ones that only have a double thread on them. I also have a bunch of odds and ends over here. Some are triple threaded, some are single, but a lot of times I'll leave the tails in there because different threads are different thicknesses. And for embroidery threads, you're going to want to have needles that have pretty big eyes, depending on how many threads you need to send through the needle. So I've got this sock that is purely embroidery needles, and currently unoccupied by any particular threads. This one that's got really small needles in it for really tiny, skinny, decorative threads or rayon threads. Over here I've got one separated out that just has polyester threads because I differentiate between my cotton and polyester stuff, you know. But yeah, look, see, you can move these things around and it's like brushing your own hair. Here's a bunch that are, these have been hanging on that shelf for quite some time, and look, oh yeah, maybe they're all tangled, but look, you can just kind of put your fingers through them and you comb them out, and they'll sit there waiting for you whenever you need them. So when you run out of a little bit of thread, or you just have one button, it's like, oh man, I want to wear this blouse, but now I gotta pull out the thread. Just save them, hanging on a shelf. If you have little little ends of spools left over that don't have that much thread, and you're like, I can't fill a bobbin with that or bother trying to stitch a seam with that, put it aside and save it. And when you get around to needing to make a bunch of needles, there's plenty on here to make a couple needles and have them pre-ready already. So back to the twisted up embroidery thread here. I need one of these needles that, oh look, that one has brown in it and it's a decent size. Do I have one that's empty? Here's one that's empty. So I'm gonna take the little threader and put it through and take the end of the thread and stick it through. Give it a little yank. And then I pull it through. Oh, you know what? I probably should have turned on my iron so that you guys don't have to get bored, because I still don't know how to edit. I think I can pause the camera so that you don't have to watch me do a million of these, but there we go. So there we go. I've got a doubled over thread, and so that's 6 strands going back, you know, 3 going one way and 3 going the other way. And you can imagine, if you start yanking this through fabric, all of these threads are gonna get all like, oh my gosh, where are we going? I don't understand, what are we doing? Oh my God. Block wax or a candle stub or anything that's actual beeswax, because those little cakes, you know, you'll if you start preparing a lot of these, sometimes it's easier to just have the big block and you can saw it back and forth a little bit to get the wax in it. And you can see this is a pretty big block of wax, and you can see all of the cut marks, you know, so, and you can flip it around so you get a whole bunch of different surfaces off this block, so you don't have to fix it very frequently. But when it does get worn out too much to your unliking, you can just use a cheese grater or something to shave off the edges and then iron the edge, and then you get kind of, see the top edge? That one's not been used too much and it's recently been reclaimed, whereas that one still has a lot of cuts in it. So there we go. I've got one needle that's got some wax on it. And it's actually probably a good thing maybe that I didn't turn the iron on right away, because you don't want to have your iron on all the time. Try to do your best to keep the iron off as long as possible, because especially if you live in Central Florida and it's like 80, 90, 98 million degrees every other day, or every day, you know what I mean. Anyway, my air conditioning bill got crazy because I was doing a bunch of ironing last month, and I was like, why is my bill so high? Oh, it's because I ironed 6 queen-size bed sheets, or, you know, was making stuff for the, you know, refashioning the shirts for the kids. So there's another needle, and then you wax it. So I think I might, and I'm going to stick it right in the ironing board right there. I think what I'm going to try to do is I'm just going to pause it now, see if I can do the pause thing, and then be able to restart it after I've done, like, I don't know, a couple more of these. I don't need a lot because I'm just doing the face on this bear. So maybe I'll do like 8 or 10, because, you know, as long as I'm doing it, I might as well make a couple, because it's good to have it ready for your future self. Pause button, not the record button. Okay, so I was in the middle of resetting so that I could maybe do some other demos and looking for needles to thread, and I actually came across a couple of examples, so I don't even need to make some fresh ones. If you look at these threads that are already pre-threaded and stored on my old holy sock, I don't know if you can see it, but you can kind of tell that the threads over here are considerably more twisty looking than the other ones. These are threads that have been waxed, but not actually ironed. The other bunch from here over has actually been ironed. So let me hold up that little piece of paper so you can see it again, or that piece of board. I'll try to put it real close so you can see it without any reflections, but you can probably kind of see how much twistier the other threads are. If you don't, then, well, try it yourself and you'll see. Thread 10 needles, iron and wax half of them, and compare them to the other 5, and you'll see. It's actually kind of neat too. I found this other one because sometimes I take my sewing on the go, and hand sewing is a good thing to do when you're somewhere that allows you to sit there and hand sew for a while if you're doing demos or whatever, I don't know. But if you check out that thread on my left, your left, this one right here on the end with the kink, you see that kink? You know what that's from? That's from when I had brought it with me somewhere by putting it into my favorite thread carrying hardcover book. Big hardcover books are great for this because you can open up to the pages and take one of your threads and put it in, flip the page, and flip it over. And you can fill a whole book full of threads like that. And I've got all these little tabs from when I have different colors to work on. And then I have a whole bunch of pre-threaded threads to go with me on the go. So anyway, I've preheated my iron, so it's going. You can do this ironing step pretty easily with just a large-headed pin, something with a big pearl on it. It's nice because you're going to use this to separate the threads. And if you're worried about getting wax on your ironing board, you can put down a piece of parchment paper. I'm not going to do it because I'm not wasting the parchment paper because I got to make cookies or something with it. Maybe some bacon, I don't know. But you just pull it out and just pin it down to the board and leave the pin sticking straight up so that you can put the pin on the head of the needle. What I've actually done, since I iron a lot of needles, is I made my own goofy little ironing thread board, and this is actually just a piece of 5-inch floor crown molding. I don't know, some sort of 5-inch molding that went around the floor when we redid our floors a couple of years ago. And I just covered it with some old fabric that I'd never used for anything, probably, but it would make a good ironing board cover. It's some sort of polyester garbage. I don't know. It's a little fuzzy. It's not good for garments. I don't know. But it's great for the ironing board since it might just get wax on it anyway. So all I did was wrap around and staple it down. And then on the end, I stuck my pin. And I actually had to put a little extra piece of cardboard in there to keep the pin from going all the way through, because you don't want the pin to go all the way through. You kind of need that little space up there, because what you're going to do is you're going to take your thread that is kind of wrinkly and there's some knots in it. I don't know if you can see them, but it doesn't look great. So what I'm going to do is take the thread, split it in half the way it is on the needle, grab the knots, and run the knot up to the pin, so I'm holding it nice and tight. And at this point, you can actually roll it back and forth, and you'll be able to see some twists that are in it. So just go back and forth a little bit. Grab your iron. I'm doing it backwards. And just give it a quick iron. Now look at that. Does it help? The lighting in here is terrible. Let me get one of the other ones that hasn't been ironed yet, so you can compare and contrast. So the one that is here still stuck to the pin is the one we ironed, which is nice and beautiful and straight, and I don't have it pulled tight, you know, just loose. And here's the one that we didn't iron. That's loose. See how it's a little bit more twisty? All of those little twists are going to be a huge pain in your butt when you're hand sewing later, because you're going to be sewing all of these beautiful 6 threads through other layers of fabric, and it's just going to be like, And the wax is a lubricant. It does help, and it helps when you don't iron it, but ironing just makes it so much better, because what you're doing is when you heat it up a little, heat the wax up a little bit, it sinks into the fibers and it can make it stronger, because beeswax is a marvelous preservative. Don't they find them in, what are those things? The Egyptian tombs and stuff. They've found honey that's like 10,000 years old and it's still good. So, you know, put a little beeswax in your garments and they'll last forever. And your hand sewing will really thank you. It will really thank you. Yes, welcome to Crazy Town. Iron your threads. Be kind to your future self. Enjoy hand sewing again. Or for the first time, and then forever after.